And I just wonder how long it took them to realize that Jesus wasn't with them. Right? Because it says that in verse 38, Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. And so they kind of knew that he had taken a nap, right? That's fine, Jesus, I'm going to go take a nap and lay down. But they probably would have assumed that when the storm came, that Jesus would have woke up. And so they would assume maybe, I don't know how big the boat was, but they would maybe assume that he was with maybe another disciple doing something else. But there had to come a time when they realized, where is Jesus? Where is he? And so it says the disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drowned?" I think we've all been there to a point where we're in that storm, we're in that place in life where we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know where we're going to turn, and we're like, "God, what are you doing? You're asleep. You're sleeping on me right now. I need you to do something. Can't you see what I'm in the middle of? Can't you see what I'm going through?" And then they call this character into question. They said, "Don't you care that we're going to drown? Don't you care?" And that's what we're kind of say to God sometimes in situations. Can't you see what I'm going through? Can't you see what I'm dealing with? Why aren't you here with me? Why aren't you doing something about this? And it says in verse 26, he says, Jesus replied, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" And then he got up, rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. And my brain, works a little bit weird with some of the stories of Jesus, but sometimes I just imagine him like sitting up like half asleep, storm, and then just, all right, I'll go back to sleep. You know what I mean? But he could have been like, like stood up, like stop. It could have kind of gone either way. But I'm not sure. And that's the way my brain thinks. So I figured I'd share that with you guys. That's my wondering. That's my question in all this. And then it says that it is completely calm. And there's probably two things you don't want as a sailor, right? Too much wind or no wind. And so I think they're kind of stuck to deal with what's just happened. They can't go anywhere. It is completely calm. Because when Jesus speaks, it's the same voice that spoke back in Genesis, that voice of God saying, he spoke the earth into creation, he spoke the sea, spoke the land. That voice just said, stop. And it all stopped completely. And they're standing there in the middle of it. Wow. The thing that I want to get across this morning is that in the midst of the storms of life, in the middle of the nasty stuff, we tend to forget who's on the boat with us. We just forget, because listen, they had Jesus with them. They had seen them heal all these people. He had seen them do all these miraculous things. He cured a man who couldn't walk. He brought one of this widow's son back to life. They had seen all that. And yet in the middle of just the storm, they're freaking out. And it's because the storms, the difficult times in life block us from seeing what God has already done and what God has already brought us through. And that's why, all through the Old Testament, the prophets, they would come and they would say, remember what God has done. That was the thing. That was what it was all about. Remember what he's already done, and that should give you the faith that you need to move through where you are now. And they just continue to ignore him. And it says here in Isaiah 40, it says, Isaiah speaking, it says, "Why do you say, O Jacob, and complain, O Israel?" And Jacob's just another name for Israel there. He says, "My way is hidden from the Lord. My cause is disregarded by my God." Right? So Isaiah is prophesying. About at this point is in a lot of danger. The Assyrian army is just growing enormously fast, and they're about to get it from Assyria. And so they're calling out to God, saying, "Why are you asleep? Why aren't you doing something here?" See, they had turned away from God, and they had started doing all these other crazy things, and so things finally started to break down, and they're like, where are you, God? What are you doing? Why are you sleeping? Why am I going through this? And this is what Elijah replied. Verse 28, do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. Amen. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. You see, the reason that we get so afraid, the reason that we just get paralyzed by our fear and refuse to continue to move is because we haven't come to the realization that those disciples did that day when they were on that boat that says that they were terrified. And they said, who is this? That even the wind and the waves obey him. We forget how big our God is. I love that verse, or that song, or that video. It said, if God is for us, who can be against us? And so my heart this morning, if we're going to face fear, we've got to be able to remember what God has already done. Remember what God has already brought us out of and where we've been. But secondly, remember how much bigger he is. You see, because in tough times, we tend to look at what our future holds and worry about what our future holds, but we forget who holds our future. Are you hearing me? Mm-hmm. And that's what it's about. We got to come back to that. Remember who's in charge. Remember who's fighting for us. Man, that song was perfect that we sang before this. Just, God is with me. And that's the promise. That's the thing that will remove the fear from our lives. The thing that will let us just go through all the tough times and accomplish something great, because in fear we can't ever accomplish anything great. We've got to move through it. Would you pray with me this morning? God, you are, who is this that controls the waves and the wind? You're in control, Father. And I praise you that I don't have to worry about the things that might be coming up in my life, that you desire that I would cast those things on you. That the things that trouble me, the things that I'm afraid of, you're so much bigger than those things. And I just thank you for that confidence that gives me, and that the ability that gives me to move, and that you've given us a spirit that is not of fear, but a boldness to proclaim your name, to do anything that is in your will, Father. We have that boldness your Spirit gives us, Lord, and I thank you for that. And I thank you for what you're doing in these lives. Now, if you would like to receive that Spirit this morning, if you're sick of being afraid, if you're sick of living in a life of fear, not knowing what's coming, and you desire the Spirit of God in your life to move you through that, would you just raise your hand this morning? All heads bowed. Just raise your hand. And God is going to do an amazing thing in your life. You can raise your heads. He doesn't always promise to just move us out of our difficult situations. I wish that was the promise, that he's just going to bring you out of it. The promise, though, is that he's with you through it. Mm-hmm. And that the church is with you through it. And you have each other, each one of us, to help you get through the difficult things in life. And so I just ask you to take advantage of that. Take advantage of the people that are here that love you and that are praying for you.